Hello and welcome to the monthly Marquee. I'm your host, Bart Lovins, director of the Hardin County Schools Performing Arts Center. Our first guest is also our Pat Kid Spotlight of the Month. Please welcome Kentaro Hall. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. Hey, again, I want to thank you and your parents for joining me this morning.
Thank you.
We've been riding around with Skaggs Limousine doing radio interviews and stuff, and I've been hopefully not boring you with stories of
no.
my experiences when I went to Japan, and I know you've spent a few summers there as well.
Yes.
Tell me just a little bit about your family history and your connections to Japan.
My dad was born and raised in Kentucky, and my mother is from Okinawa, Japan, a really little island off Japan. And my father was in the Marines, so he went over there, and that's how they met. And then now I'm here in Kentucky.
That's a whole story unto itself. And how long have you been living here in Hardin County?
I was born and raised here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And you have older brother and sister.
Yes.
Who have both gone into music.
Yes.
And you are going into firefighting.
Yeah.
So you are, as I said earlier, you must be the black sheep of the family.
Correct.
How did you get involved in firefighting?
When I was really little, I've always wanted to be law enforcement, a cop, just like a lot of other boys as
sure.
they're
Astronaut,
young.
yeah.
Astronauts too, yeah. And then when I was about 14, I started opening my mind up. I was like, well, what can I do to get involved now? Like, what can I start pursuing now and stuff? And I was like, I opened my mind up. I was like, well, what about firefighting? And then it kind of took off from there, and I turned 15 and joined the junior firefighter program at Vine Grove Fire Department, and now I'm the sergeant.
Wow. Wow. In addition to that, you're also involved with band there at North Hardin. How long have you been doing band?
I've been doing music since I think I was about, I want to say 8. Somewhere in my earlier days in elementary school, I started with violin, but then I got into band with trumpet in 6th grade, middle school.
We touched on it just a little bit in the last interview when we were talking. Being a junior, and having all of these extracurricular activities going on, how do you balance that with your schoolwork?
It gets pretty difficult at times. Definitely, it's like if every night if I'm not at one place and I'm somewhere else, and then so at the end of the night I manage to pull through and come home, and before I take a shower and go to bed, I always get the books out.
I would think that has placed upon you a great amount of responsibility to manage your time better.
Yes, definitely. I'm very grateful for that.
And when you're with Mr. Froge in band, when you're with Miss Root in choir, where do you see yourself in those organizations? You're doing firefighting, and you've been in a leadership position. Do you see that carrying over into band and choir, or do you give up the leadership to others in those areas?
Well, as far as the band, in the marching band, I was actually a squad leader for the trumpet section. Starting this past season, I had a select few that I was accountable for, and I made sure they're always on top of it, learning their parts and learning everything like that. And then as far as in the choir, I'm actually one of the choreographers starting this year with the dances. And
you're doing Mulan right now?
Yes.
Very cool.
Yes.
And what's your part in Mulan?
I play as Magyar in Mulan. He's one of the Hun Army soldiers.
Gotcha. What are your plans at this point?
As far as after high school, my vision right now is I want to get into firefighting as a career, and kind of the path to that I'm thinking is going into the Air National Guard after I graduate as a firefighter, and then from there seeing if, deciding if I want to be a firefighter under the state or federal level, and then see where the path takes me from there.
And I have to admit, I don't know a lot about that particular path. The paths that I pursue with students are a little bit different.
Right.
How did you find out about those opportunities? What do you have to do to make sure you can meet the standards for those things?
Well, I'd say it's all about like the connections that you make with all the people around you, especially with your community and stuff like that. And my godfather, he was a volunteer firefighter for a while. And so he's the one that kind of got me into the, introduced me to the junior firefighting program and whatnot. And so from there it kicked off, and I made more connections, and then it, opened up to, well, how else can I, spread
Yeah.
as far as how I can get involved in.
Well, and I think almost any field is that way. I still rely on connections that I made with people back in high school
Yes.
and in college in my field as well. Well, we look forward to hearing big things about what's happening in your future. And again, really thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Our next guest is Ms. Carmen Caldera-Bratska, representing the Elizabethtown Performing Arts Center. Carmen, good to see you.
Good to see you again.
You are in what we call in theater in production.
Yes.
You have you are stirring many pots at the moment.
Yes, yes, we are.
And the burner is up on high.
Yes, several burners are on high, and yes, we are cooking with gas.
So what's going on?
Well, I've been working with students at TK Stone, teaching theater workshops to them, theater history, technical theater. That's through our arts and humanities classes. So we've had all the students coming through there. We had a visit from Miss Kentucky yesterday.
Oh, wow.
For the girls at TK Stone, and that was a wonderful, inspirational moment. And she actually won the preliminary to go to Miss Kentucky on our stage.
Oh, okay.
2 years ago, because of how that cycle
Sure,
works.
yeah.
So it was nice to have her back, and she kind of reminisced a little, so that was nice. But we just had auditions for the Elizabethtown High School Theater Guild's production of 1984, and we are in rehearsals for that now. And we are still finishing up casting for TK Stone Middle School's production of The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Well, now, those are two very different productions.
Yes.
I mean, almost opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yes.
If I work really hard, I can see some overlap in topics and so forth.
So 1984, of course, is based on George Orwell's book. And there are several different scripts out there.
Yeah. Well,
Several.
I directed it as a PAC Pro-Am several years ago. And,
Right.
And yes, there's very many different approaches to that subject matter.
Yes.
And that's one of the reasons I wanted to see. So that is a very difficult piece to adapt for high school.
Yes. The focus for this version is purely on Winston and his relationship with Julia. And we're also finding some relationships that could possibly be there between Julia and O'Brien that we're exploring. And they've been kind of intrigued because they were not really thinking that when we did the first read through, and then I said something at rehearsals. And so it's kind of neat to see their eyes flash and go, ooh, I can do something with that.
Right.
It's a beautiful thing to watch. Whether they end up keeping it or not, it's still beautiful to watch that process play out for them, especially newer actors. And I have a lot of new actors in this production.
Yeah.
Which is a little...
Well, the discovery that you can play more than one emotion at the same time
Yes.
is an eye-opening
Yes.
experience for an actor.
Yes. And to have one emotion in the character's head, but have to portray a different emotion at that moment, it's very fun.
And on the other side...
On the other side, we have
the
Narnia.
You have Narnia.
Yes, we have Narnia. And again, we have the International Thespian Society, which is our honorary for theater students at TK Stone Middle. And so I gave them the same thing, except I let them form a play reading committee and let them read the 3 plays, discuss the 3 plays, and they
That's
chose
great at
which
that
one they
level.
wanted to do.
Yeah.
Yes.
And again, that's a very technically difficult show, depending upon how it's been adapted.
Yes. That's the one I'm more concerned about technically.
Yeah.
We looked at renting costumes, and that was like $1,200. And I was like, we're not going to be renting costumes. We're going to be getting creative.
Exactly. You mentioned the National Thespian Society. That is a celebration that you guys have coming up as well.
We actually had it already.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay.
Yes, we will have one for the high school probably pretty soon after closing 1984.
Gotcha.
Yes, because there are certain criteria you have to meet to charter your troupe.
Of course.
And since it's near your troupe, we've got to meet all those criteria before we can do that. But they're excited.
Yeah.
They're very excited to get that started. And yeah, they're working really hard.
And how can people find out about tickets and more information about either
Yes.
of these shows?
Well, March is National Theater in Our Schools Month, so we will be doing all kinds of publicity and celebration of that. But any information about the EPAC is always on our Facebook page, Elizabethtown Performing Arts Center. Tickets for both shows will be at the door only because we don't have regular hours or a box office or
I know how that goes.
any of that stuff. So tickets for 1984 will be $5 at the door, everybody, student or not. And those performance dates are March 20th through the 22nd. We'll have performances Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And times will be announced on the Facebook page.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And then The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe will be March 26th and 27th. We are still trying to figure out prices and times for that.
And
it's a little early.
What are your audience age ranges? Because that's a question I get asked, especially
Right.
with a difficult subject matter. What are your
Right.
age ranges that you're aiming for with these two shows?
Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, I think, is any.
All ages?
Yeah, I think any age can really enjoy it. And we are all about exposing kids to theater. They can always go in our gallery if they get a little antsy or if it's too long for them. But I would say school age, definitely. 1984, however, I would say middle and up.
There's
middle
a
school
certain
and up.
level of maturity necessary in the audience member to grasp the subject matter and
Yes.
deal with the repercussions of the character's choices, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. And again, how can they find out more?
Facebook is our location, Elizabethtown Performing Arts Center.
Great. Thank you, Carmen.
Thanks for having me.
Our next guest is Miss Carrie Lewis, representing the Hardin County Playhouse. Carrie, it's so good to see you.
Good to see you.
We had a few other stand-ins from the Playhouse come in and talk with us, but it's nice to have you back.
Yes, good to be here.
And anxious to hear not only your perspective on the shows that have been going on, but from your position with the board, how things are going with your fundraising at this point.
Things are going very well. We've had a lot of, I guess, a grassroots type of interest, a lot of folks sending in generous donations. We certainly, of course, need lots more, but it's really nice to see all these people, just everyday people, sending in whatever funds that they're able to do, and this is how we are going to build this theater.
We talk privately about the differences between our two spaces and how we feed off of each other in a lot of ways and support each other in ways that probably the general public is never really aware of. But we're really codependent upon each other.
Very much.
You know, I have always wanted to do something for local writers. We simply don't have the time.
Right, exactly.
You know, and so that's a need in the community that you guys may be able to fill with this new space.
I believe so, and I think the one thing, as I travel around and look at different places and talk to different folks, I think the one thing that E-Town is lacking in is really to really dig into our arts community, because we have a lot of local talent here, and right now they're going elsewhere.
Yes, yeah,
You know,
I agree.
And we need to bring them back here, you know, to our community, and I would love to see things just start blossoming and flourish, and it'll be good for all of us, you know, as a community.
Well, speaking of blossoming and flourishing, you have a production that is just getting on its feet.
Right.
They've had auditions, they've started rehearsals for Night Mother.
Yes, exactly.
Tell us just a little bit of the history and what Night Mother is about.
Night Mother is not going to be a show for everyone. In fact, even at auditions, the director said, now this may be a difficult process for you if you have issues with the thoughts of suicide and difficult relationships and so forth. It is a very heavy production, but very thought-provoking.
And beautiful.
And beautiful. Very beautiful, and I think cathartic for a lot of folks. It's not going to be entertaining in the same way that a lot of folks, like Nutcrackers, was at all.
And that's part of planning a season.
Exactly. I mean, everybody wants a full meal, so we have our appetizers, we have our meat and potatoes, and we have our dessert, and this is not dessert.
Yeah. And it's... You know, it sounds very heavy, and it is a very heavy submission. It's one of the first modern plays, and I say modern as in the 1900s moving forward, that dealt with suicide and the choice of suicide as a life-ending measure in a compassionate way, arguing the point between the mother and the daughter.
Right.
The daughter being someone who is, for once in her life, in very good health, and while she's in good health, is making this choice to end on a high note.
Right.
And and the mother's arguments as to why she should not do so. And it's just an incredible. If you've had a mother or a sister or a daughter, this just rings true.
Exactly.
It is a night in their lives, and they go through the paces of their daily life, and while doing so, open those wounds.
Right.
And work through some things that they may never have ever worked through were it not for this decision of the daughter. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece about mothers and daughters.
Well, and I think there's always, you can always find all these different life lessons in a play like this. And one of the big ones is making those things, resolving those differences and coming to understanding and compromise or whatever. You know, those are a lot of times people think of those things at a funeral home and it's too late.
Yes.
You know, and then they're sad and they have regret and all kinds of bad feelings that they carry around forever. And we always say, well, we'll never do that again. Then we do it again.
Because it's our nature.
It is our nature. You know, we like to put things off and we don't like to look at the grim reality of life is very short and fragile.
This is the kind of play that when you're done watching it and you've applauded and the lights go up, you turn to the person next to you and go, I love you.
Yes.
Because that's what this is about.
Exactly.
It's just an incredible, incredible piece. And Jeff Curtis is directing.
Yes.
And Moira Taylor is playing the mother, and Abigail Brown is playing the daughter.
And it'll be a great show. I'm
Yeah,
sure.
this is a solid team.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And when are show dates?
Show dates, opening night is March 13th, Friday, and it's March 13th through 15th, and the 19th through the 22nd. If you follow us on Facebook or at our website, HardinCountyPlayhouse.com, we'll keep you updated on all the times and schedule as it is. So
Great. And that website again?
HardinCountyPlayhouse.com.
Great. Thank you so much for being here.
Great to be here.
Next up is Sarah Dakin with Central Hardin High School. We're going to be talking about their production, Little Women. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Excited to work on this show.
Where are you in your process?
We're a little more than halfway through. Where next week we start, because we rehearse. I don't call everybody every day because everybody has a lot of stuff going on. So next week we start doing it in order. Oh, this is what comes after that, not just all the ensemble stuff in a row. So we're at that, getting ready to start just running it next week.
It's so funny you mentioned that. Our PAC kid this month is Kentaro Hall from North Hardin.
Okay.
And he's in choir. He's in marching band. He's also a volunteer firefighter.
Wow.
And so the juggling that our students have to do with their schedule, I think that's a huge, we're teaching time management skills.
Absolutely. I always tell kids, I can work with your schedule if I know what it is. It's the people who are suddenly like, oh, and now I have 2 jobs that I'm like, what? But if you are upfront and proactive enough to know, and then you take it to your job and be like, here's my rehearsal schedule, and we can all work that out.
Yeah. I can't be here tomorrow doesn't work.
Right. Or I've already left for the day. I can't be there today. Doesn't work.
Yeah. Life lessons. It's about life lessons.
Absolutely.
Well, speaking of life lessons, that's a pretty good segue into Little Women.
Yeah.
Because it is all about the life lessons that these girls learn.
For sure, absolutely. And it's such, we were talking earlier, it's such an accessible show. I mean, there's like one of Joe's characters in her story she writes says a couple colorful little things, but that like she would have thought in the 19th century that was totally scandalous. What she was having him say to us, it's like, what? So it's very accessible for families and kids. But it, I definitely have my own feminist history with Little Women, and now I'm married to a European who's significantly older than I am, and I think Professor Bear had a little influence on that, but everybody who has grown up with Little Women has their character that they relate to, and it,
And you relate to different characters.
Absolutely.
when you reread it as a mother or
Yes.
in college, or
Yes.
your life experience affects who you identify with.
So much. I played Marmee in high school in a play adaptation. And then we did a different play adaptation in drama club 11 or 12 years ago, one of the early things that we did. And now doing the musical, like now I have small children, and I told them, I was like, I have so much more patience for Amy now than I ever have in any other experience with this story, you know? So there's really something in it for everybody. And there's, you know, so I think for teenagers to be doing this show, because Joe's recurring theme is we made this promise we would always be together, and then everybody grows up and it doesn't turn out that way. And she has to grapple with, that's not really what she wants either. She wants to go off and have her adventure and have her life, and getting to the point that you know that's okay to have this life that's separate from your family, but still take care of your family and be connected there is, I think, a really great thing for kids to be thinking about.
Yeah, and talk a little bit about the music, because people have probably at some point in time read Little Women,
Sure.
or they may have seen a play adaptation. This was a Broadway musical
It was.
several years ago, and it's got some incredible music in it.
It really does. And you know, and I don't want to give too many spoilers of which songs will hit you in the gut, but I mean, there are definitely a couple songs that were like, yep, that's the moment when the audience will be like, okay, this is what this show is about. You know, like that we get to hear Marmee's perspective about, you know, father's off helping out at the war and she's taking care of these girls and it's not easy. And, you know, and that's not always the story that we hear, you know, and we hear this gorgeous song from Beth that I don't want to say any more about.
And I really find with it, if you think of the novel as women being pleasant and proper, the music gives voice to their inner soul, to their inner thoughts, their inner voice
Sure.
in this musical. It really lets you see inside and how they're coping and how they're dealing and the strength of
Right.
each
Well,
of
and
these women.
so much of the characters is that again with teenagers, negotiating like, what do I feel and think, and what am I allowed to share of that, and what will that mean for my future? You know, I
Choices.
think, I don't know if you've seen the new movie, but the way they handle some of the girls talking about the way they see their future, I think is just so cool. And we do get to see so much of that conversation in the show.
And how can people learn more about this production and get tickets and stuff?
You can email me at Central Hardin, just sarah.dakin@hardin.kyschools.us. If you call the school, they'll hook you up with me. We have a Facebook event out there, but it's March 6th and 7th. The Friday night at 7, the Saturday at 4. We do have a school show the Friday morning at 10, but it's getting pretty close to full.
Excellent.
So we'd love to have it completely full, but it's very close to full. We have some good support on that. But again, family friendly. And it very much moves with all the music. You know, it's not like I described to somebody with the Susan Sarandon and Winona Ryder movie that most of us are well familiar
Yes.
with, compared to the new movie. You get like kind of like a, here they are being in their story, and the new movie is much more sort of organic. It's nonlinear. With a musical, like you said, you get inside them even more than that. And so even a younger kid, I think, even if they don't get all the story, will enjoy the music and will, you know, we have ball gowns and there's so much to see that I think they'll really get into.
Yeah. Sarah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for
Really
having
looking
me.
forward to this.
'Cause you got to love it, yeah. So, time. 'Cause I'm moving on the groove. 'Cause you got to love it, yeah. So, time. 'Cause I'm moving on the groove.
Accolades are wonderful. Winning a ribbon or a medal is a thrill. We all rejoice when we receive an A or an excellent job evaluation. The roar of the crowd is equally as rewarding to the ears of the player in the end zone as the performer bowing on stage. It is our nature to love to be loved. Personally, I've always been more receptive to criticism. Something in my psyche has always dismissed praise as shallow, or worse yet, polite. Even as I graciously say out loud, thank you, that's very kind, some voice in the back of my mind always asks, well, what did you really think? What do you think I could have done better? Perhaps it's how I was raised or trained, but I seem to immediately move past accepting praise, straight on to seeking insight on how to further improve my efforts without really taking the time to enjoy my successes. Or so I've always thought. We just finished the run of the novel stage adventures of Sherlock Holmes, The Sign of Four, and I found myself receiving more criticism than usual. Having toiled over this production for more than a year to make it more entertaining, challenging, and fulfilling than last year's Sherlock installment, how could it not be received with equal, if not more excitement than A Study in Scarlet? Well, to paraphrase Sherlock Holmes, I saw, but I did not observe. I heard, but I didn't listen. Although the cast and crew were phenomenal and all performing at the top of their game, I dropped the ball as a director and was not on top of mine. Some of the dialects were hard to understand. A few voices were maybe too shrill or inaudible. There were inconsistencies in the use of pantomime. The play structure was perhaps too complicated. And although these well-founded complaints were few and far between compared to the play's overall complimentary reception, they were consistent enough to give me pause. After a few cloudy days of reflection, I'm incredibly grateful to be working with the wonderfully supportive and talented people that always surround me and appreciate whatever I attempt to achieve, and think I have some answers now to the simple overarching question: where did I go wrong? And in doing so, my post-show depression has given way to excitement about what lies ahead and how I plan to right the wrongs, however few, that I made with The Sign of Four, as I plan my approach for possibly bringing the Hound of Baskervilles to life. It's all just a reminder that we're never too old to learn. Even the best of us can get stuck in a rut, and even the most talented or smartest can still need help. It's about stepping outside our comfort zones, asking for that help that is crucial. And that's what I plan on doing as I move forward. So if you were kind enough to share your concerns about The Sign of Four, don't be surprised if I come asking for help if Sherlock returns next season in The Hound of the Baskervilles. That's going to wrap things up on the monthly Marquee. Right now, we're going to scroll through some of the events happening in our community as we show you some scenes from last month's production of the novel stage adventures of Sherlock Holmes, The Sign of Four. Until next time, I'm your host, Bart Lovins. Have a great month.